Hello everybody and welcome back to Maths Miss Buick. In this question here we're going to be looking at complex numbers but solving quadratic equations within complex numbers. So let's begin by looking at our question where we have a quadratic, so x squared plus 2x plus 2. Automatically we're going to put this quadratic into our minus b formula. Again, you don't need to know this off by heart, it is in the log tables, but you have used it several times, so I would nearly presume that a lot of students would have this formula off by heart. So A here is 1, B is 2, and C is also 2. So A is 1, B is 2, and C is also 2. So let's substitute this in. So we have minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 to be squared minus 4. A is 1, C is 2, all divided by 2 by 1. So we have minus 2 plus or minus square root of, well, 2 squared is 4, and minus 4 by 1 is minus 4, and minus 4 by 2 is minus 8, all over 2. And if you simplify this down, we end up getting minus 2 plus or minus the square root of minus 4 all over 2. Now up to this point, before you would have studied complex numbers, if you had a negative in your square root, you always knew you went wrong, because if you type in, for example, negative root 4 into your calculator, what will come up will be an error. So you can see here, so a math error. So you would thought that was wrong. But in complex numbers, in fact, it is often necessary to get a negative there in your square root because they are examining a certain thing here now, which we're going to show you. So we're going to start off by introducing the fact again that I squared equals negative 1. So that would make sense that I will be the square root of negative 1. So in the exam you're given this, and then you must use your knowledge of squares to know I is equal to the root of negative 1. So in this example here, we're going to take our minus 2 plus our minus, and we're going to use our surds now that we know of. So whatever number you have here, you take the positive of it. So we're going to put a positive 4 in here, and we're going to multiply that by the surd of negative 1 all over 2. So now we have minus 2 plus or minus. Well, we all know that root of 4 is 2. And as I showed you above, the root of negative 1 is I. So that implies then that we have minus 2 plus 2i over 2. And we have minus 2 minus 2i over 2. And when we divide by 2, we get minus 1 plus I and minus 1 minus I. So those two are our roots, or our complex roots of this quadratic up here. So just to recall, a very important step in this question is that you are really looking for a negative root. And I squared equals negative 1. So to get I in its own, well, square both sides. So the root of negative 1 is I. And we use our surds here to break it up. And we replace then the negative root 1 with the I.